This is VK3CSJ in Narre Warren South. Please stand by for this morning's WIA broadcast at 9 a.m. on 1825 kHz in the 160 metre amateur radio band.
This national news edition originates from VK1WIA and is rebroadcast throughout Australia and around the world under a common licence published on the WIA website. This WIA national news service is copyright to the Wireless Institute of Australia, and rebroadcast is authorised only under the provisions of that common licence.
WIA Director and Company Secretary Peter Cleave, VK8ZZ.
From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
In WIA National News this week, WIA Director Justin VK7TW and ACMA, a VK5 software-defined radio conference invites NZART and ZL Hams to make a presentation, VK's RAOTC monthly broadcast news, and VK Wyson a la rescue radio activity. That's when Graham, VK3GRK, joins us with special interest group news. But wait, there's much, much more in this edition of news from the Wireless Institute of Australia, and it's for week commencing Sunday, July 5, 2026. And with the razor blade and splicing block, I'm Editor Graham, VK4BB.
Ham Radio News. Nobody does it better. We are VK1WIA.
The Australian Communications and Media Authority is encouraging amateur radio operators to subscribe to its amateur radio newsletter. The free email newsletter provides updates on the amateur radio regulatory developments, consultation opportunities and other matters affecting the amateur service in Australia. As the ACMA continues to review and update various radio communications arrangements, the newsletter is an excellent way to stay informed directly from the regulator. Subscribing is quick and easy. Simply visit the ACMA subscription webpage, enter your details and select the amateur radio option from the list of available newsletters. The service delivers important information directly to your inbox on a semi-regular basis, helping ensure you don't miss future consultations, regulatory changes or announcements relevant to the Australian amateur radio community. For more information and to subscribe, visit the ACMA website at acma.gov.au and follow the Subscribe to Our News link. And the link is available on the email edition of this broadcast. And this has been Justin, VK7 Tango Whiskey, for the WIA National News.
We are VK1WIA. Now, international news with VK2LAW Jason.
Hello. Canada's radio regulator, Innovation, Science and Development Canada, ISED, has released a consultation on their proposals for changes to their policy on antennas and towers. These proposals will speed up and make easier the processes required to get permission to erect antenna systems. The changes were designed to make things easier for commercial telecommunications providers, but they offer many improvements to radio amateurs. Radio Amateurs of Canada, RAC, and the Fédération des Clubs de Radio Amateurs de Québec, RAQI, submitted a joint response to the consultation. In it, they supported all of ISED's proposals for change to this policy. RAC and RAQI also asked for 2 changes and 2 additions to ISED's policy. An increase in the exemption from consultation for antenna systems. The current policy makes antennas less than 15 metres exempt from consultation. They would like to change this to 20 metres. A decrease in the size of the zone within which amateurs are required to respond to their neighbours' concerns. A decrease to 2 times the height of the antenna system from the current 3 times the height. Relief from antenna restrictions in covenants on residential property. Reasonable accommodation of amateur radio antennas for those residing in condominium stratas and rented housing. Apple is pushing forward a series of software updates that would previously have been bundled with a new version of its iOS operating system, making them available earlier than in previous cycles in response to AI-driven security concerns. The company told Reuters it was adapting to the reality that, given the ability of artificial intelligence to speed the development of malicious hacking tools, it needed to reduce the time between when updates were first made public and when they were put into customers' hands. New Zealand is go for launch. Rocket Lab successfully launched a spacecraft for the US Space Force's Victus Haze mission on June 19. Lifting off aboard an Electron rocket from the company's Launch Complex 1 in New Zealand. The spacecraft, known as Victus Haze Puma, was placed into a sun-synchronous orbit and will participate in military demonstrations designed to test rapid response capabilities and onboard spacecraft operations. Following the launch from New Zealand, the Puma spacecraft entered a commissioning phase before beginning rendezvous and proximity operations with another spacecraft already in orbit. Still in Kiwiland, the NZART and their hams have been asked by a group hosting an SDR radio event to maybe give a presentation. The organising committee of the Software Defined Radio Conference 2026, hosted by Flinders University in Adelaide, South Australia, running 28th of September through to the 2nd of October 2026. In their request, they go on to say, "Our conference is hosted by the College of Science and Engineering at Flinders University, and our organising team is drawn from the Pewter Centre, Professional Electronic Warfare Training, Educational and Research. Every member of our academic staff holds an amateur radio licence, including our conference lead, Professor Samuel Drake, VK5 Papa Hotel Yankee, Professor of Electromagnetic Systems and Spectrum Security, and Coordinator of the Centre for Defence Electromagnetic Research and Training. Watch this space." Stellar achievements. Scientific American's inaugural Young American Scientist Recognition Award. Scientific American's inaugural Young American Scientist Recognition has been awarded to Amber Young, Program Scientist at NASA Headquarters, Washington, and Irini Lambridis, Research Fellow at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, Greenbelt, Maryland, and the University of Maryland College Park. The US Federal Communications Commission, FCC, has taken action to withdraw the recognition of an authorised testing laboratory found to have filed false testing information in support of an equipment authorisation application. According to the FCC, the testing lab, SLG CPC Test Laboratory, based in Dongguan, China, has admitted to submitting numerous test reports with data copied and pasted from other reports. The FCC's action to withdraw SLG CPC's test lab authorisation follows an investigation that identified 33 separate FCC authorised identifications that were based on identical testing reports prepared by the laboratory. When SLG CPC were notified of the discovery, the laboratory blamed the falsified reports on inadequate non-systematic review procedures carried out by the review staff. After a 4-year hiatus, the US Federal Communications Commission, FCC, has launched a new spectrum auction offering access to 5G grade spectrum essential to wireless services. According to a press release, Auction 113, as it's formally known, makes available spectrum licenses in the 1695 to 1710 MHz, 1755 to 1780 MHz, and 2155 to 2180 MHz bands. The licence areas included in the auction cover geographic areas in the US with more than 100 million consumers, including major US cities like New York, Chicago, Boston, Tampa and Charlotte. The latest FCC Spectrum auction provides access to licenses that were originally made available for auction for commercial use back in 2014. However, a number of the bids made during that auction were withdrawn or defaulted, leaving 200 licenses unsold. The US Federal Communications Commission has voted to toughen oversight of submarine communications cables that handle 99% of international internet traffic, proposing rules that will make it harder for Chinese companies to provide equipment and fast-track approvals for trusted US tech firms. The FCC said it was planning to require licenses for the first time for operators of submarine line terminal equipment, which performs the most critical function of a submarine cable system by connecting to US terrestrial facilities. US companies such as Facebook, parent Meta, and Alphabet unit Google will benefit from the process to get quicker approval to operate additional undersea cable systems to handle growing internet traffic. With the undersea internet cable business booming, the FCC last year barred the use of equipment or services in undersea cable facilities that companies it has deemed and listed as posing threats to US national security. The firms that were barred included Huawei, ZTE, China Telecom and China Mobile. But the new rules are expected to expand the ban to include the use of equipment from China or any other country it deems a foreign adversary in US submarine cable systems. A big thank you to John VK4JJW for stepping in last week for me. For WIA National News in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, operational news with Felix, VK4FUQ.
Hello there. Now, contest-wise 2026, June 6 and 7 VK Shires contest.
With some great scores being recorded, the VK Shires contest results are on the WIA website and certificates available for download. It's congratulations to all who placed well in the contest and thanks to the participants who uploaded their logs. Full results and statistics are available on vklogchecker.com. There were 52 logs in total, a 40.54% increase in logs over those submitted in 2025. Now, what else is coming up in 2026, Felix?
July 11-12 is the IAAU Headship Championship. Then July 18, VK Trans-Tasman Contest. July 25-26 RSGB IOTA Contest. Yes, close off July. There is on the air contest which runs from 1200 hours UTC on Saturday 25 July to 1200 hours UTC on Sunday 26 July. With CW and fan activity on 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres. August 15-16 RD Contest. August 29-30 Alara Contest. September 19-20 VHF UHF Field Day. Now let's open the DX window to the world. Red card handed out at World Cup event. Amateur radio operators across USA, Canada and Mexico host cities are activating special call signs W6C, W5C/H, W5C/D, W2C, VB7F, 4A1CMX, 4A1GDL, 4A1MTY, VC3F to celebrate the 2026 World Soccer Tournament. With 16 cities participating, you now have 16 wonderful QSL cards to collect. But the ref's whistle has just blown. Bonus station WC5WC replaces W2C for football special event. W2C will no longer be part of the multi-city event, and contacts beginning on the 4th of July will not receive credit towards any awards. Another individual or group not associated with WC2026SES.org has reserved W2C for an independent World Cup SES from July 4 to 19. Contacts with W2C during that time are not expected to receive credit toward the certificate program. Questions regarding W2C operations after July 3rd at 23:59 hours Zulu should be directed to the new call sign holder, WA2VUI. Meanwhile, hunters who did not work W2C are now encouraged to listen for bonus station WC5WC, whose operators throughout the US will be calling CQ. Confirmed contacts with WC5WC will count towards achievement certificates for the special event, which concludes on the 19th of July. WC5WC and all remaining host city stations will be active and on the air until the end of the tournament on the 19th of July. Special call sign DQ40CMP will be in use until the 11th of July. To commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster, the station has been worked recently on the HF bands using FT8. QSL via DL1 EAL. QSOs will be uploaded to Logbook of the World. Special event wireless station GB8GOW is active now until next Sunday, 12 July, to promote Glaucoma Awareness Week. Look for activity on the HF bands using FT8, FT4 and SSB. Pascal is on the wireless as CN2NQV from Morocco until the 11th of July. CN2NQV has been spotted recently on the 20, 17 and 15 meter bands using SSB. For WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ Enningham.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now, Special Interest Group News.
Hi, I'm Graham, VK3GRK from Bendigo. When your telescope doesn't work, who do you call? Catalyst. Catalyst Space Technologies is preparing to launch its Link servicing spacecraft aboard Northrop Grumman's Pegasus XL rocket in an attempt to rendezvous with NASA's Swift Observatory and raise its orbit, potentially extending the life of the 22-year-old space telescope. Swift was launched in 2004 to study gamma-ray bursts, among the most energetic events in the universe. Although the observatory remains scientifically productive, it was built without propulsion capable of maintaining its orbit. Atmospheric drag has gradually reduced Swift's altitude over the past 2 decades, and increased solar activity accelerated that decay. NASA determined the spacecraft was at risk of descending too low for safe servicing operations later this year. To preserve the observatory, NASA selected Catalyst Space Technologies in 2025 to develop a rapid response rescue mission. The company designed and built the Link servicing spacecraft in less than 1 year, an unusually short schedule for a mission of its complexity. Link carries electric propulsion and a robotic capture system designed to attach itself to satellites that were never intended to be serviced in orbit. NASA is facing a repair bill of between $4.1 and $4.6 million for Deep Space Station 14, its 70-metre RF antenna in California, all because of what has found to be inadequate procedures and inadequate training of workers. A report by the agency said that its investigation found a number of primary causes, including human error, weaknesses in software, and an undetected failure in the antenna's hydraulic limit system, which is its final mechanical safeguard. The incident that took the antenna out of service occurred last September as it was tracking the Juno mission for deep space exploration focused on Jupiter. The antenna over-rotated, adding stress to structural supports and cables and damaging water lines feeding the antenna's fire suppression system. The antenna, a key part of the Deep Space Network, is expected to be out of service until October of 2028. Worldwide Special Interest Group News. Summits on the Air, Worldwide Flora-Fauna Program, Parks on the Air and other adventure groups. Potter Park number US 6532, Erie Canal Way. This US Independence Day weekend, on Now, the Radio Association of Western New York are on board historic USS Little Rock at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park to operate special event station Whiskey 2 Delta. The event celebrates America's 250 years of independence and the exciting arrival of a giant mama duck and her son Timmy at nearby Canalside. The world's largest rubber duck and her duckling will be visiting Buffalo's waterfront just steps from the naval park, creating a unique backdrop for this special event operation. Amateur radio operators should look for Whiskey 2 Delta on the air throughout this holiday weekend, Friday to Sunday, 1400 to 2000 UTC. On-air activity is being spotted to potter.app as Whiskey 2 Delta at US 6532 Erie Canal Way. Now, more news again on this year's VKFF National Get-Together.
Hello, this is Maria, VK5 Mike Alpha Zulu. There are now 60 attendees for the 4th annual VKFF National Get-Together being held in Albury, New South Wales between Friday the 30th of October 2026 and Sunday the 1st of November 2026. The get-together is for those interested in the Worldwide Flora and Fauna WWFF Parks Activation Program and the exciting world of operating portable. It is a fun social event giving you the opportunity to catch up with the other amateurs you have met at previous get-togethers and often putting a face to a call sign for the very first time. The get-together has something for everyone. It includes a Friday evening dinner, Saturday presentations and various displays, a raffle, a Saturday evening dinner with guest speaker Lord Howe Island The Expedition, a quiz, a Sunday morning barbecue breakfast, antenna construction projects and a Sunday evening dinner. The use of 2 special event calls has also been approved, Victor India 4, Victor Kilo Foxtrot Foxtrot and Victor India 4, Whiskey Whiskey Foxtrot Foxtrot. Registration is required to attend the event. More information, including costs and the registration process, can be found on the WWFF Australia website at www.ffaustralia.com. We would love to see you at the 2026 VKFF National Get-Together in Albury, New South Wales, but remember you must register to attend. 73 Maria VK5 MAZ.
Worldwide Special Interest Groups Digital. The following is a message from Safecomlink. For decades, HF radio ARQ, or Automatic Repeat Request Digital Modes, such as PACTOR, has been governed by 2 laws everyone simply accepted. ARQ is point-to-point. Both stations must be on the same band with a viable propagation path. But what if neither of those limitations were actually true anymore? Imagine a station on 40 metres having a live ARQ conversation with a station on 20 metres. Operators on completely different bands exchanging data in real time. 3, 4 or even more stations participating in an error-free ARQ live chat. This isn't a future concept, it's already happening. The Safecomlink cluster for PACTOR introduces something that has never existed before in HF ARQ data communications. A shared, connected brain that bridges multiple independent nodes into a single intelligent system. If you're involved in HF digital communications, emergency communications, PACTOR, WinLink, or simply enjoy seeing old limitations challenged, this may be worth 5 minutes of your time. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Rescue Radio.
Hi, I'm Richard VK2SKY. When we hear the phrase rescue radio, we usually think of amateur radio saving the day when natural disasters occur or yachts are in trouble far out to sea and so on. That's true. and I've seen many of these over the years. But sometimes you have to play the longer game to get the win. Last time I mentioned that Wyson New South Wales had helped bring about a scientific breakthrough in stem cell research. It took several decades, but we got there. Here's how. Every year, Wyson New South Wales provides safety communications for the Hawkesbury Canoe Classic, a canoe marathon on the Hawkesbury River just north of Sydney. The event is organised by the Arrow Foundation, a charity that funds bone marrow and stem cell transplant research. In May, after 25 years of work, researchers at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute announced that they had worked out a way to create pluripotent stem cells. Those are cells that can be used to create any other kind of cell in the human body. That work was funded in part by the Arrow Foundation, which in turn was helped by Wyson's support of the Canoe Classic. We weren't just out on the river having fun playing radios. The next Hawkesbury Canoe Classic is on the weekend of the 24th and 25th of October, and Wyson New South Wales will be there. You can hear more about it on the VK2WI weekly broadcast or follow on social media for updates. Maybe you'll even volunteer to help out. Links are in the text edition of this news.
I'm Gareth VK4GED, and for this national news, I'm standing outside the Disaster Coordination Centre in Atherton in far north Queensland. This is where disaster specialists from Tablelands Regional Council meet when there are significant weather or other disruptive events. And it's from here that radio amateurs will be called to help in times of community need, and where they'll be setting up a radio base at short notice. It's also where the Tablelands Radio and Electronics Club meets every month to discuss and train on matters of communications resilience. I've singled out the Tablelands Club and Council because they have one of the best emergency comms relationships in Queensland. If you have a look at the Tablelands Council's website, you will find pages dedicated to radio communication and the involvement of the Tablelands Club. Search online for Tablelands Resilient Communications Subplan. The takeaway from this is that legislation makes each Queensland council responsible for its own area's disaster response. So if you're a Queensland radio amateur and you want to contribute as a communications volunteer in your council area, make yourself known to your mayor, deputy mayor and disaster coordinator, because they will be the ones to talk to before and during an event. Ask to be involved in your council's disaster communication exercises and let them know your station's capability, readiness and availability. Next time we'll talk about accreditation and where to go in Queensland for some pre-disaster training. This is Gareth VK4GED with the VK4 MCOMS update. You can find out more by searching online for VK4 space EMCOMS.
Worldwide Special Interest Groups Final Frontier. Researchers at NASA's Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio, are testing a regenerative fuel cell system that could provide long-duration energy storage for future Artemis missions to the Moon. The system generates electricity by combining hydrogen and oxygen into water, then recharges by splitting the water back into its original gases for repeated use. The technology could provide a lighter alternative to batteries while storing enough energy to power habitats, rovers and other lunar systems through the Moon's 2-week-long nights. Engineers recently began testing the complete integrated system, including storage of the hydrogen and oxygen produced during recharge. Data gathered during the test campaign will help prepare the technology for future environmental testing under simulated lunar conditions. If successful, regenerative fuel cells could become an important part of the infrastructure needed to support sustained human exploration of the Moon. NASA astronauts Chris Williams and Jessica Meir concluded their 7-hour, 20-minute spacewalk this week, completing their primary objective to remove and replace a wrist joint on the Canadarm2 robotic arm. Following the repair by the astronauts, NASA's Mission Control in Houston powered up Canadarm2 to successfully complete an initial checkout of the system's power and data connectivity. Over the coming week, ground controllers also will begin moving the arm as system checkouts continue. NASA and the Canadian Space Agency elected to replace the wrist joint after it malfunctioned during normal Canadarm2 operations on May 27, after the arm drew elevated motor current and did not move as expected. Worldwide Special Interest Groups. Time for news for radio amateurs, old-timers club, members and non-members alike. I'm Graham, VK3GRK in Bendigo.
Hello everyone, this is Peter, VK7PD, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month. Time for the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia's July Bulletin to go to air. This month, as well as the latest club news, a discussion on the former Liddell Power Station in the Hunter Valley held over from last month, an update on the current status of the free DV or digital voice for HF bands from Peter VK3TPM, and a report on Antenna Palooza, a combined club event here in VK3 that rivals Perth Tech. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen to the program and to join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmission times and modes may be found on the RAOTC website at www.raotc.org.au or just Google RAOTC broadcasts. If none of the transmission times suit you, you can download the audio file at any time from today from the club's website. Once again, tune in tomorrow for the July RAOTC Bulletin. Enjoy the program and please join in the callbacks afterwards. 73 from Peter, VK7PD.
Finally, to the social scene, we're looking at July 2026. In VK5, it's Adelaide Hills Amateur Radio Society's big annual buy and sell, Marion RSL Norfolk Road, 9:30am, next weekend, July 11. And on July 14, at 4pm, it's the WIA Club President's webinar. Now till next we meet, I'm editor of this, the WIA National News Broadcast, reminding us all, walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5 BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
Greetings, listeners. This is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia, with this month's news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club for July 2026. I am Andrew, a VK3 Charlie Alpha Hotel. Details on when to hear the news and information bulletins are available at the club's website, www.raotc.org.au. VK3OTN is available on a wide range of radio platforms, HF, VHF and UHF, along with 2-metre repeaters, amateur television, DMR, that is digital mobile radio, and D-Star. These news broadcasts are available for download for up to 6 months, just in case you missed the original news broadcast from the RAOTC website. Just put RAOTC into your favourite search engine. If you'd like to contact the club, then why not send us an email? Our address is raotc@raotc.org.au. I hope you enjoy this month's news broadcast. Welcome to the latest RAOTC news for July 2026. The RAOTC committee met on Thursday, May the 21st, using Zoom teleconference. This is usually a housekeeping event to clarify any issues needing to be addressed. Unfortunately, one of our committee members, Peter, VK8ZZ, was unable to attend due to other commitments. That reminds me that if you feel you can offer any help, then please step forward. You don't have to physically travel anywhere, with telephone, email and Zoom teleconference being used to keep everyone in touch. Online payments. One issue that was raised during the committee meeting was that of paying online. You've probably noticed that one by one ATMs along with bank branches are becoming less and less, and this is due to the fact that around 85% or so of people pretty much never use cash these days. When I go to the supermarket, I look around me and there's not many people these days, including older folks, using cash. It only seems logical that RAATC should move with the times and explore some of these newer options, in addition to the current arrangements that are in place. You can pay directly with cash over the counter at any Bendigo Bank branch, or pay by internet banking, direct deposit. Currently, we're exploring some of our options. Many listeners will have heard and used PayPal. However, there are others. Payment systems in common use are Square and Stripe. Look it up on Wikipedia if you've never heard of them. When you use these services online, you are dealing directly with their website, although it may appear to be on ours, and any financial information, the card numbers, owners' names and so on, are on their website, not the RATC website. It's almost the same level of security used when using internet banking. I remember back in the early 1990s, once a fortnight I'd drive my car down to Bay Street in Port Melbourne, find somewhere to park my car and then queue up at the bank with passbook in hand. I'd get out a handful of cash, then rush over to another bank, once again queue up and pay another bill, and finally to the post office and pay a few more bills, after queuing up of course. My bank weaned me off passbooks and got me onto a more modern way of doing things, starting with phone banking and then using BPay. Thinking back to those times, it's not something I'd like to go back to. These payment services operate on a commission basis and are usually similar to what banks charge directly, usually around 1% or so. Stay tuned for more information as they progress. Stuart Day Award. At its last committee meeting, the RATC has made a decision to award the 2025 Stuart Day Award to Paul Edwards, VK7ZAJ, for the article Moving the Station and Downsizing the Antenna, which appeared in OTN number 76, the September 2025 edition. The citation for the award reads, Paul showed in great detail how he managed to reduce the amount of equipment in his shack for a much smaller space and still maintain adequate antennas to keep operating on his most popular bands. This article covers an issue that all amateurs will have to deal with at some point in their lives. And finally, an explanation on the term Bravo Zulu. This is a combination of the Bravo and Zulu nautical signal flags, a naval signal typically conveyed by flagship or voice radio, meaning well done in regard to actions, operations or performance. In addition to its use in the Royal Navy, it has also been used in vernacular slang within the US Navy, NATO and other allied naval forces. In the Royal Navy, when the Sovereign wishes to reward the crew of a British warship with the order to splice the main brace, i.e. providing the crew with an additional rum ration, it is ordinarily followed simply with the signal or statement Bravo Zulu. New members and silent keys. I haven't been advised of any new members this month. It is with regret I report the following silent key that has come to the attention of the membership officer. Don Jackson, Victor Kilo 3 Delta Bravo Bravo, member number 1290, on Monday the 25th of May. Let us pause a moment in memory of our departed colleague. And that's about all the club news we have for you this month. In this month's broadcast, I have 3 technical articles, one held over from last month due to time constraints. A discussion on the former Liddell Power Station in the Hunter Valley, site of the new Liddell grid-scale battery. The iconic towers at AGL's Liddell Power Station came crashing down in a controlled demolition on Tuesday, May 26, 2026. bringing an end to more than half a century of coal-fired history. After 18 months of meticulous planning, it was all over in about 20 seconds. This will be followed by an update on the current status on 3DV or digital voice for HF bands from Peter Marks of VK3 TPM. And finally, a report on Antennapalooza, a combined club event here in VK3 that rivals Perth Tech. I hope you find these articles interesting. The Liddell Power Station. In the September 2025 edition of ATN, there's a very interesting article about the Liddell grid-scale battery to be built on the site of the former Liddell Power Station. I thought it might be appropriate to explain a little about the history of the Liddell Power Station before presenting an article on the proposed grid-scale battery. The following information is courtesy of Wikipedia. The Liddell Power Station is a decommissioned coal-fired thermal power station that had 4 500 megawatt steam-driven turbine alternators, a combined electrical capacity of 2,000 megawatts. Its operating capacity was assessed as 1,680 megawatts, that is 2,250,000 horsepower, in April 2018. Commissioned between 1971 and 1973, the station is located to Lake Liddell near Muswellbrook in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales. Unit 3 was taken out of service on the 1st of April 2022. Subsequently, Unit 4 was decommissioned on the 24th of April 2023, followed by Unit 2 on the 26th of April 2023. The last unit, Unit 1, was removed from service on the 28th of April 2023. History. In September 1964, the Government of New South Wales announced its intention to construct the Liddell Power Station and create a lake for cooling, Lake Liddell. The first of 4 generators was completed in 1971, 2 more in 1972, and the 4th in 1973. At the time of completion, Liddell was the most powerful generating station in Australia. It was also the first major power station in New South Wales to be built inland using fresh water for cooling instead of the more abundant salt water used in coastal power stations. To accommodate the change, Lake Liddell was created to provide cooling, requiring an 11-kilometre section of the main northern railway line to be rebuilt on a new alignment. The completion of Liddell aided the retirement of power stations in Sydney such as Balmain and Bunurong. Originally the plant was fitted with the then standard electrostatic precipitators for dust collection and the more efficient fabric filters similar to those used at other power stations and were retrofitted in the 1990s, reducing particulate emissions to a barely visible level. Much of the coal was supplied by overland conveyors from mines and shared with the nearby Bayswater Power Station. In 2007, a project commenced at Liddell to replace some of the station's boiler feed water with hot water from a solar thermal array. By March 2007, the project had reached a second stage prototype but had not been connected to the power station. Subsequently, a 9 megawatt solar section was added to the Liddell coal-fired generator, but it has now effectively been closed. Analysts say that the incentive to use the solar boost was reduced by the removal of the carbon price and an excess of coal supply. Liddell Power Station was owned by the Electricity Commission of New South Wales, with the ownership transferring to Macquarie Generation in 1996. In September 2014, Liddell was included in the sale of Macquarie Generation by the New South Wales Government to AGL Energy. Alternate fuel sources. In addition to the coal-fired steam turbines, Liddell Power Station also operates 2 GEC 25 megawatt oil-fired gas turbines and an 850 kilowatt mini hydroelectric generator. The power station is also licensed to co-fire plant biomass and coal to produce electricity, allowing it to utilise sawdust and wood shavings from the nearby timber industry as a portion of its fuel, replacing up to 5% of coal requirements. However, in practice, biomass accounted for only about 0.5% of Liddell's total output. Greenhouse emissions. According to estimates from the Carbon Monitoring for Action, Liddell Power Station emitted approximately 14.7 million tonnes of greenhouse gases annually due to burning coal. In 2010, the Australian Government introduced a carbon pollution reduction scheme to combat climate change. This scheme has had an impact on emissions from power stations. The National Pollutant Inventory provides details of various pollutant emissions, including carbon monoxide, which are estimated to be 1 million kilograms in the year ending 30 June 2011. A Freedom of Information request in 2018 revealed that Liddell is permitted to emit 3 times more nitrogen oxide than the amount allowed under best practice guidelines. Closure and site rehabilitation. AGL announced in 2015 and confirmed in 2017 that it intended to close the Liddell Power Station in 2022. The closure of this and other coal-burning power stations in Australia led the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, to seek advice from the Australian energy market operator on extending the life of a number of them to head off the anticipated future electricity shortages. Malcolm Turnbull said the government had been advised that if Liddell plant was to close in 2022, there would be a 1,000 megawatt gap in baseload dispatchable power generation. The Turnbull government asked AGL to keep Liddell open beyond 2022 or to sell the Liddell power plant to Alinta Energy. In August 2019, AGL announced that 3 of the turbines would be able to be kept running until April 2023 to ensure a reliable power supply to New South Wales during the 2022-23 summer. In December 2018, a proposed upgrade to the Bayswater Power Station was approved to be completed around the same time as the proposed closure of Liddell. Both are owned by AGL Energy and consume coal from the same mine. The upgrade approval did not impose tighter air emission controls. However, AGL claimed that the closure of Liddell would result in a net improvement in air quality. The demolition process was expected to commence in early 2024 and take approximately 2 years. Work will include removal of all main structures, boilers, chimneys, turbine houses and coal plant, and ancillary buildings, and levelling the site using the recovered crushed concrete. More than 90% of the materials in the power station are expected to be recycled during the demolition, including 70,000 tonnes of steel, more than the total weight of the steel works for the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Critical infrastructure such as transmission connections will be retained to support the ongoing use of the site as an industrial energy hub, helping provide employment and essential economic activity for the region. Planning approval has already been granted for a 500 megawatt or 2 gigawatt per hour grid-scale battery. Since April 2022, Liddell has typically been generating 750 megawatts on average. There is a 200-hectare dam containing 39 million tonnes of coal ash at the Liddell site, and heavy metals have leached into Lake Liddell. AGL has earmarked $1.5 billion for clean-up of the Liddell, Bayswater, Torrens Island and Loy Yang A sites. Construction of a 500 megawatt or 1,000 megawatt hour grid-scale battery started in 2025.
You are listening to VK3OTN and associated relay stations. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club Australia Incorporated, with the monthly news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club.
If you've tuned around the HF bands in recent years, you've probably come across some strange digital signals and wondered what they are. Here's one that's increasingly common. If you have a spectrum display, you'll see that it's 1.5 kHz wide, about half that of a single sideband transmission. It's actually made up of 30 closely packed carriers, and this new mode carries voice over HF in good fidelity with none of the background noise and interference that just gets worse on HF every year. The old FreeDV used to sound a bit robotic, but the latest mode, called RAID V1, uses AI technology to transmit speech that sounds like this.
I'm very much following that. Done a lot of C programming myself in past lives. Don't do so much coding now. I've been playing around with Python more recently, writing custom displays for in-vehicle use with HF transceivers. VK3 TPM, VK3 YSA.
Not only does it sound good when signals are strong, it continues to work as the signal-to-noise ratio goes down. Here's a test between a station in the US and VK3 FFB, with sections in both digital and analog sideband.
Yeah, Roger, I copied all that in spite of a little bit of QSB, trying to do some harm, but wasn't successful. I copied you throughout. I can switch to analog if you like. And this is VK3 FFB in FreeDV. And now I'll switch to analog. So I released the PTT and I'll press it again in a moment. VK3 FFB coming in analog in a moment.
I think we can safely say that our beloved single sideband is no longer the benchmark of poor signal voice intelligibility. While much of the noise we face on HF is from that scourge of shortwave listeners, switch mode power supplies and LED lighting, we often operate when lightning is about. Here's how RAID V1 sounds during a severe storm.
At 8:30 on Friday, April the 17th, we have a line of thunderstorms from the Texas border all the way up to the Canadian-U.S. border, creating very noisy conditions. We are giving it a try on FreeDV, and we'll compare this with analog audio. This is W7YC.
The good news is, if you'd like to listen and transmit with FreeDV RAID V1, there's no proprietary software codec needed. The software is free and open source. To get started, visit freedv.org. Go to the download page to download. It's available for Linux, Mac OS and Windows. You do need a connection between your computer and radio for both audio and transmit control. For best results, we do recommend a USB audio headset. If you've used other digital modes, you're more than halfway there. So come and join a merry band of digital friends, taking up less space than a sideband signal and sounding better than ever in the noise. This has been Peter, VK3 TPM, for the Radio Old Timers News broadcast.
You are listening to VK3OTN and associated relay stations. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia, Incorporated, with the monthly news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club.
Antennapalooza 2026. As mentioned in a previous broadcast, over in VK6 they have Perth Tech, which is organised by VK6 Amateur Radio News. Here in VK3 we have Antennapalooza. This article I wrote for a local radio club I'm a member of, so I thought it worthy to include in the broadcast. This event was held over the weekend of the 18th and 19th of April 2026. This was the 10th year of Antennapalooza, and as usual, a small contingent of Southern Peninsula Amateur Radio Club members attended, with myself and fellow club member Bob Tate, VK3XP, attending the Saturday session. The venue for the event is the QTH of Ian Jackson, VK3BUF, a rural property located around 7 kilometres from the West Gippsland town of Druin. It's an easy hour's drive east of Melbourne. The event has evolved over the years and usually offers a variety of technical forums on a wide variety of topics, and at this year's event the theme was Power. How power reaches our homes, powering up rigs in the shack, and portable power. Along with these, there were a few other presentations, and one of them was fellow RAATC club member Chris Chapman, VK3QB, on his Morse Academy, which at its conclusion was wanting everyone to throw their microphones away and revert to using Morse code. Chris also showed us a range of portable QRP equipment he uses on a regular basis. The main event and guest presentations for 2026 was a demonstration by Luke Townsend of Outlook Industries of his remote-controlled military support cart called Project Gus, developed in Gippsland for the Australian Army. Unfortunately, Luke was not able to make it on the Saturday, and his presentation had to be rescheduled for the Sunday, so I missed out. However, listening to the reports in some of the club nets the following week, it sounds like it was well worth attending. Most clubs run some kind of hamfest sale or as a fundraiser and as a bit of a social event. These are great and fulfil a need, but they are over in just a couple of hours. Antennapalooza is a different kind of event that brings people together from multiple clubs, but with enough time to relax and get back into the hobby. Picture a few acres of land with a few trees around the edges. Operators can come along with their tents, caravan or swag and set up their radios and amateurs for a weekend in an RF quiet space. For some, it is an opportunity to put up and try out new antennas they don't have room for at home. For others, they can socialise and listen to the talks going on in the pavilion. All that was needed was to bring along a comfortable folding chair and your picnic lunch. There was boiling water available for tea and coffee, as well as a barbecue. A toilet was also located close by. Some years the weather can be a little hostile and a tractor has been employed to drag cars out of a bog, or attendees huddle in the coach trying to keep out of the wind. However, this year it was almost perfect weather. It wasn't sunny, however, there was no rain, nor had there been any, and there was no stiff breeze blowing either. Nearby clubs and others kick in a small amount to fund the operating costs, but it's free for all visitors. Promoters at past events have included RASA and Gippsland Gate Radio and Electronics Club, Southern Peninsula Amateur Radio Club, Frankston and Mornington Peninsula Amateur Radio Club, the Pride Radio Group and the Eastern and Mountain Districts Radio Club. If you couldn't make it for the weekend, then going for just a day was still well worth it. As the event drew closer, a full program of speakers and topics was posted on the Antennapalooza website. There was also a station operating with the call sign of VK3AZA for this event. Bookings for visitors, as in the past, was not required. All one needed to do was just turn up. Pick a spot to set up camp if staying overnight. There was no space limits. Generators aren't, however, discouraged because of the noise factor.
This RAOTC broadcast originates from VK3OTN and is rebroadcast under a common license published on the RAOTC website. The RAOTC broadcast is copyright to the Radio Amateur Old Timers Club Australia, Incorporated, and rebroadcast is authorised only under the provisions of that common licence.
In keeping with tradition, we'll finish this broadcast with a short, humorous story. Now, everyone loves little Johnny jokes. Most of them aren't fit for broadcast, but here's one that is. Little Johnny's class had a spelling exercise. Little Johnny was in class and the teacher announced that they were going to try something different to help everyone get to know each other a little bit better and to help them with their spelling. She explained, "I want you to stand up and give us the occupation of your father, spell it, and say one thing he would give us all if he were here today." The first student raised her hand to volunteer. "Marcy," the teacher said, "you may go first." Marcy replied, "My father is a banker, B-A-N-K-E-R, and if he was here today, he would give us all a shiny new penny." The teacher said, "Very nice, Marcy. Who wants to go next?" Kevin stood up and announced, "My father is a baker, B-A-K-E-R, and if he was here today, he would give us all a freshly baked cookie." "Very good," the teacher told Kevin. Jeff was next and he said, "My father is an accountant, A-C-K. Before he could attempt to spell it one more time, the teacher cut him off and told him to sit back down and think about it for a while. When he thought he knew how to spell it, he could stand back up and try again. Little Johnny raised his hand in excitement, hating to be acknowledged by the teacher. The teacher called on little Johnny to go next. Johnny says, "My father is a bookie, B-O-O-K-I-E, and if he is here today, he would give us all 20 to 1 odds that Jeff would never be able to spell accountant."
You've been listening to VK3OTN. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia Incorporated. This concludes this month's News and Information Bulletin. The next RAOTC News and Information broadcast will take place on the first Monday of next month, on the same frequencies and at the same times as today, with the exception of January. If you have missed this broadcast or want to listen to it again, then visit the RAOTC website. The address is www.raotc.org.au and follow the links on the main page. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you will join in the callbacks where callbacks are taken. This has been Alan, VK3ZAH, on behalf of the RAOTC broadcast team. 7-3 everyone.